Welcome to another webinar, Better Agency Marketing in about 5 minutes. Today's topic, should agency marketers use gated or ungated content? Well, let's begin at the beginning. What is ungated content? Ungated content, it's digital content, could be blogs, vlogs, podcasts, videos, case studies, case study vignettes, newsletters, and more. It's provided on demand, so web visitors do not need to provide any information to access these materials. So in other words, they see an article that you've written about risk and risk management. They click on that article and immediately get a PDF or see the content on an HTML page, and there is no content they need to provide you to get it. The advantage with ungated content is higher fulfillment. In other words, since there's no commitment for the visitor, there's a really low threshold, then they can view the content. Ergo, you should have more clicks and have more visitors viewing that information. Now, let's look at gated content. Well, simply said, it's the same thing as ungated content, but it's considered higher value. So it's only available after visitors provide demographic information. So they put in their name, they put in their business email, maybe they put in their company name, and then they get to see that gated content, that PDF or video, whatever it happens to be. Make sure if you're using gated content, however, that it has value to them. It's educational or compelling or interesting or useful or relevant to them. Demographics for this gated content is typically used by a form submission. They have to fill out a form fields to get that information. There are other ways of doing it too. You could do it through email and do it manually, but most of the time it's automated and it's with a form submission. Now, let's talk a little bit more about gated content. Depending on the perceived content value, web visitors may be required to provide more detailed information. So the higher the value of that content, theoretically, the more demographic information your agency can collect. And that has, of course, great value in building your list and gleaning more information and qualifying the prospect more and so on. There is elasticity between gathering more information and perceived value of content. So if the content has a very high value, you can maybe get 5, 6, or 7 demographic fields, even more potentially. A good example of that is a webinar. If the perceived value is lower, make sure you have fewer fields. Ultimately, to begin with lead gen, for example, you just need their name and their email. Now, gated content for this reason is also referred to as form in front of content. So when do you use gated versus ungated content? Well, based on the value or perceived value, the intellectual property that might be involved, and your insurance agency marketing goals, you have to determine which and when you should use these. So simply said, the higher the value, the more likely it would be used as gated content. And a great example of that is an educational webinar, continuing education credits, really deep case studies, white papers, surveys, complex or intricate surveys that have been done that are pertinent to your prospect. All of those would have gated content, especially if you have a proprietary methodology. The 12-point process to determine the optimum benefits plan, for example, for an organization. If it has any IP or you think it has IP, you should definitely make it gated. You might even make it password protected. Ungated content increases views. So depending upon your goals, you may want to have even valued content as ungated because you'll get more views, greater viewership. So that's where marketing campaign goals come into play. If your goal is branding and awareness, even if you have a valuable piece of content, you may want to let people get access to that easily if you're just trying to get your name out there, if you're trying to expand your reach. However, if the goal is lead gen, then you may want to make gated content, even if it's just a lower value, but still sufficient enough to glean interest. You may want to make that gated so you at least get a name, a business, and an email so that you can then work on warming that prospect in your prospect pool. The goal for any agency, broker, or wholesaler should be to record consistent, high-quality content. You want to generate both gated and ungated content. You want to share this in multiple ways, in blog, vlog, website, YouTube, etc. You should consider creating a resource library to organize your content, attract visitors, and help your producers. And use a gated versus ungated content strategy when you decide how to share your content. Thank you for joining us today. Please contact the Startup Selling team for additional information on this and other marketing topics.